Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to another episode. I'm Tess Carletta,
I'm RK Ashwick.
And I'm Noah Hawthorne.
and today we're discussing beta reading. Friends, what is beta reading?
Beta readers are saviors, really. That's what they are.
That's it, that's the episode.
End recording. Thank you. There are people who will read early drafts of your
Yeah.
book or short story or whatever, and they will give you feedback on how they're feeling. Do they like the characters? How do they feel about pacing? Are they confused at all? So, really kind of getting a gauge on what your readers would feel about the story.
I think that's pretty succinct.
And maybe catching any errors or not necessarily your editor. They're
Mhm.
You mean
definitely
like typos and stuff?
in that way too.
See, okay, this is interesting because when I was writing the
Yeah.
questions, the second question that I had is what is beta reading not? And that was going to be my answer is they're not copy editors. And I guess like that's something that we can discuss. What are different definitions of beta reading, like what it means to us and what we need as authors and what other people might need. But for me, like sometimes I've told my beta readers like don't catch the typos. That's what I'm paying someone a lot of money to do, and they still do, and I'm like, I love you so much. Thank you. Thank you for taking excellent care of me. I will be not fixing these mistakes right at this moment. I think that that's because, like, at the point that you're at in the story where someone is beta reading your book, you're not at the point where, like, you're finalizing grammar and syntax and all the things that copy editing catches. Like, a lot of things might get rewritten or changed, and I think I just try to tell beta readers to not copy edit while they're going along, just in an effort to save their time and make it easier for them to get through the book.
Yeah, I know beta readers definitely aren't proofreaders. I would argue that they're also not like development editors. Like, they shouldn't be necessarily prescriptive. Like, you should solve this problem by this, unless you really, really trust that person and want that kind of feedback. I feel like typos, I know I've seen some readers be like, hey, I know my spelling sucks. It would be great if you could look out for that. For me personally, I usually say, hey, if a sentence is clunky or something like that, don't worry about it. I'm going to rewrite all of these sentences anyway. But that's just kind of where I've been because I've been sending very early drafts to my beta readers, which I feel bad about because they're very rough. But I really need the feedback.
And I think we're different. I self-edit and I go through it all times. And by the time, to me, beta reading is like before ARC readers, right? So it's still not going to be perfect, but I try to get as close to perfect as I can before getting it to beta readers. Sounds like we're all doing it at different stages, which is interesting. And I struggled with the, alpha versus beta definition between the different kinds of readers because it
That's a
applies
good
to
point.
like
I only learned that there was a difference. I only learned that there was a word alpha reading, I think maybe within the last year when Sarah Wallace brought it up in one of our calls. I was like, what? I just was calling everything beta reading, no matter where I was in the draft, no matter if it was like draft number 5 and people had read several iterations. I was like, it's beta reading. You're a beta reader now.
I think you can still do that. I think for me, my beta readers are probably closer to alpha readers right now. And for like Captured Cauldron, I did alpha and beta readers. Of course, when I get to the point of a draft where I'm like really frustrated, but I know if I work on it myself, I'm going to go in circles. For that one, I pulled in 3 alpha readers, or it might have been 4, because I wanted to make sure that my revisions were on the right track. I actually sent chapters to a beta reader in chunks while I was revising. I had never really done that process before. I will likely do something similar with Spirit's Curse, which is with, I guess it would be alpha readers right now because it's so early on in the process.
How many beta readers do you usually recruit?
It's kind of gone down a little bit. I feel like early on, I was reaching out to like 7 people, knowing that not everyone will actually read it, not everyone will actually finish. And so ideally, you get maybe like 3 or 4 like actual pieces of feedback back from different people. And then I think I have slowly narrowed down who I want those early readers to be, and it's more likely that they're going to respond. And so my alpha readers, I only have 3 right now.
yeah, it's kind of similar for me. When I first started with my first book, The Eternal Machine, I put out a very wide net and I had all sorts of people that said that they wanted to read it and offer feedback and stuff. And then I ended up actually did or went through to the end. I kind of went on my own for a bit because I just got deep in the series, and at that point, hard to get people, they haven't read the first book then how can they read the later one showed? Because obviously I'm publishing that series and it needs work for other reasons. But with Phantom and Rook series and Foxes, I've had like two, maybe three people reading it. And with my last one, only one person. And I think it worked better way because it's more direct, kind of talked more, and it was just, I don't know, it felt a lot more no. I don't want to say
Yeah,
enjoy
I
reading.
can also agree with that. I did the same thing where when I was first getting ready to publish Kit and Basie, I was just really like hungry for feedback because I really hadn't read a book like it myself and I didn't know that I would like it even as a reader. Like if I just pulled it off the shelf, I wasn't sure I was going to be into it. And I just generally wanted to know if it was a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So I think I asked approximately 25 people to beta read.
Whoa.
I know. You guys were like, I had 7, and I was like, ugh. And I think maybe 7 of them actually like got back to me, which is still like a lot.
Well, I think it's also harder to like, if you're a new writer and trying to get into a new community too, it's a little bit harder to get beta readers. And so I think maybe you do need to cast a wider net.
Well, that's the thing is I asked my friends and my family. One of my beta readers was my mother. One of my beta readers was the guest author in Patchwork. One of them was a friend that I met in a creative writing class. Like, it was all people that I knew in real life. And then, like, one of my online friends. It was a lot of, like, people who were not involved in the queer, like, indie, cozy fantasy world, which led to varying levels of results and feedback. Where I had this big spreadsheet where I was like, well, this person said they liked this, and this person said that they didn't. Now, am I trying to write a book for this person A, or am I trying to write a book for this person B? And like, it was just a lot of juggling. So I think I do like the idea of you guys had of just like picking a handful of really trustworthy people and letting them kind of guide you as opposed to trying to juggle 9 gajillion people and their varying opinions on things.
Mm-hmm.
So there are probably people that don't write who might be listening to this or who are interested in beta reading. What would you guys say are some commitments involved in beta reading?
Ooh, that's a good question. Ideally, the writer gives you a deadline for when you need to beta read by. I try to give my beta readers at least a month or like 4 weeks to read just because I know they have a lot of other things going on. As a writer, it's always wonderful when a beta reader like sticks to that deadline. Just because for me, I'm usually like, okay, I want to start the next draft at this time. I'm hoping to get the feedback by this point. And so I would recommend that, or just be communicative with the writer if you can't meet that deadline. That's fine. In terms of like other commitments, it kind of depends on the writer. I know sometimes they will specifically request, hey, could you write notes in the margins as you're going, like your thoughts or your reactions? Some people want, hey, could you write your thoughts at the end of each chapter and like what you thought? And then some are like, hey, just give me your thoughts at the end. And if they don't specify, it might be good to ask them like, hey, what kind of feedback works best for you? Because they either like may not have thought about it or it might not matter to them. So yeah, I think the specific commitment on what kind of feedback is a little bit individual.
I think now that I'm listening to your answer and looking at the question again, I think I should say what commitments and requirements are involved. Like, do you need any experience?
Oh.
No. You answered the question that I asked, and that was kind of what I was curious about too. But now I'm thinking that there are probably people who are like, well, I don't have a degree in English, so I can't beta read a book. To that I say nay. You can.
I would also say nay, but I've rambled a lot, so I'm going to let Noah go first.
Thank you for that. I think experiments, kind of harkening back to what you look for people within your audience. So, and as a beta reader, look for stuff that you're interested in and you've read a lot of. No, I don't really think I think that you should read a lot of books and like we're not looking for editors or copy. If you catch stuff, cool, but we just want to know what you want to know, how someone is reading it. Did you connect to it? Didn't you like? And I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's anybody can do that as long as they like books, And I think even if you feel like you're not quote unquote good at it, why not try it? Even if it is, and maybe.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Like, among the 25 lucky souls that I trusted with Kit and Basie for the first time, a handful of them were people who, like, had not read in a long time. And I kind of thought that feedback was fun as well, because it really gave me a sense of, like, what is someone going to think Like if they just grab this book off the shelves and they are taking a chance and they haven't read in a while, like what are they going to think? And they don't have a lot of like, maybe media literacy skills, or maybe they're not quite as honed as they used to be, or they don't feel comfortable engaging with literature in a certain way. Like just what does that look like to them? And that was helpful as well.
It's funny. I was gonna like recommend the
That is a very
opposite
good
for
point.
like someone who wants to be a beta reader. Like if you really love fantasy romance and you devour fantasy romance, you being a beta reader for fantasy romance, it means you would already be going in knowing what you expect and what you want from that kind of story. And so you don't have to have a writing degree to kind of understand reader expectations and be able to give feedback when the book isn't meeting those reader expectations for that specific genre.
I guess that's just the value of being able to not just have one singular beta reader, having, a handful of them, because you can get the different perspectives and then hopefully it gives you a complete picture of what the manuscript actually needs in revisions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do you select your beta readers?
Really early on, this was years ago for work that I have not published and never will publish, but I was looking on like forums and stuff for readers. There's a really big one called Absolute Right, where they have a specific forum for like seeking beta readers, but you had to have a certain level of involvement in the community before you could post there. So you can't just log in and start spamming that forum.
Good.
Yeah, I found a couple beta readers through there, and then other beta readers eventually from Tumblr, and then some were my, real life friends and husband.
Your husband's very reliable, though. I feel like he's got good taste and he has a good mind about him.
He's also a writer, and he knows me better than I know myself, which is just honestly embarrassing sometimes. And so he's basically my developmental editor. Don't tell him I said that.
You say embarrassing, but that sounds romantic.
Yes, it does. We need a book. We need you guys to write a book.
Also, don't tell him that. His ego would just inflate. No, I'm kidding. I keep telling him he needs to write a book and he refuses. So, I'm on that journey.
I'm excited. I'm crossing my fingers because I think just based off of what I know about him, he could write a pretty killer book.
He wrote, okay, this is off topic. He wrote the first chapter of this like amazing book and he was like, nah, I'm not going to continue. And I was like, ready to flip a table.
What?
Yeah.
It's so funny.
But yeah, that's how I found my beta readers, is I married one of them.
Let's say, and sometimes your beta readers are real passionate. And they want to flip tables.
Oh, yeah.
The way I did it in the beginning is I just kind of threw out a net, basically on Instagram and TikTok, was like, hey, I'm writing this. Do you want to read it? Let's talk about it. So that's how I started doing it. And then over time, I kind of built up this little community. I got this little Discord, and it's like partially my readers and artists I've worked with and just other people, authors that I've connected with. And I kind of just put a call out in there and was like, hey, does anyone want to read this? I'm working on it. And that was how I got my beta readers for like Phantom and Rook. And that worked out a lot better.
That's great.
Yeah, also my newsletter too. I think I probably put a call out in there. Yeah, I just kind of kept it to the people already in my audience, if that makes sense. Like I didn't put out such a wide net like I did the first time.
That makes sense. I think I already talked a little bit about how I found my beta readers for Kit and Basie, but for the book that I'm working on now, I had been doing research, I think from an article, again from Sarah Wallace, who is the light of my life, about how you can have a street team and a section of your street team or the members of your street team can be your beta readers.
I'm doing that, but it's with ARC readers. So it's like you're all a street team, and some of you can sign up to specifically like be an ARC reader too. So not beta reading, but.
So yeah, I tried it out. I had a lot of people sign up for it. All people that I like genuinely, like every single one of them, I'm like, I trust you implicitly with this task. What I tried to do initially was send them the book in 20,000 word increments because I felt like I needed a little bit of a boost in feedback and just like a general like, hey, this is good along the way while I was writing it because it's going to be kind of a big novel. But that was hard for me to keep up with when life got in the way, and it also was hard for the beta readers to like get into. Like, how do you read 20,000 words of a book, which is like the equivalent of like, I don't know, 1/5 of like an average length book maybe. I'm not good at math, but that's like approximately it. And then like you get that like once every 3 or 4 months. It's not conducive to a pleasurable reading experience, I guess. So at a certain point I was like, okay guys, we're like a little under halfway through. I'm going to put you out of your misery. You'll hear from me again when the book's done, and then you can just binge read it. You can reread it. By then, you'll have forgotten everything. You'll want to just start from scratch anyway. So, because I haven't finished yet, I don't know if that's going to go well. I'm hoping that it does, but yeah.
I get that. I think when I was sending Capture Cauldron to the beta reader who was reading along with me, she was getting, like, I think 10 chapter batches, but it was like in the space of weeks. So it wasn't, a super long wait for her.
Well, I think the other thing too is that I gave them a form that they could fill out. They could use if they wanted to. So they were filling that out for every little section. And I was like, okay, this is a lot of work for y'all. It's probably not the most efficient way to do this. Let's revamp the system. And I think that's kind of what, being an indie author starting out is kind of about. It's just figuring out what the heck works.
Yeah, there's a lot of trial and error involved when trying to figure out what works best for you specifically.
Speaking of, how did you work with them? Do you use Google Docs and they do suggestions on there, or how do you each get feedback?
So when I first did Kitten Basie, I did all sorts of research on beta reading questions, and I created a questionnaire, and I broke it into easy, medium, and hard. And basically, I said, here's a questionnaire, answer whatever you want to, and then don't answer what you don't feel comfortable answering. Or if you don't feel like elaborating, you can skip it. And some of the questions were regular beta reading questions, what do you think worked in the book? What do you think can use improvement? But also it was were you able to identify the themes of the book? Was it clear to you the main character's motivations? And for my friends that had gone through the English program with me, they were used to those types of questions, so they were able to be yes, it's very clear what Basie wants, or no, I'm a little bit confused of why his mom did what she did, or that sort of thing. And then I put that all into a spreadsheet. And then for Goldheart, my book that I'm working on now, what I did with my beta readers when I was still sending them chunks was I gave them the questions, like I said, which was kind of an abbreviated list of the first questions that I sent to the Kitten Basie readers, just without all the extra questions that I thought were kind of stupid. But I also gave them access to a copy of the manuscript so that they could leave comments right onto the manuscript. And I hoped that because there were so many of them, there would not be as many repeats of or someone could say oh, I totally agree with this comment, and that sort of conversation could be facilitated in that way. But I don't know if that happened too much with the way that I was kind of adding on to the document little by little, so we'll see if that happens more, I guess, when the book itself is finished.
For mine, I do have one friend who typically reads off of Word docs on a tablet, but for everybody else, I typically set up a Google Doc specifically for them and share it just with them so that they have the ability to leave comments basically however they want. And I usually put a little message at the beginning saying, hey, this is this draft, this is kind of where I am in the process, this is the kind of feedback that I want. And then I put a list of questions at the end, and I usually just try to keep them to character, plot, pacing, and setting. And just make sure hey, is there anything that confused you? How did you feel about this? And I also try to avoid yes or no questions, just to make sure that they don't type, yeah, it was fine, because that's not a very helpful response. So I try to structure the questions so that I get more detailed responses. I mean, that's been working out so far. It is kind of fun getting comments as you go along because people just put their reactions to things, and that's kind of fun. At the same time, it can also be stressful if you're afraid they're not gonna like it, or if they keep putting a criticism in the comments. So, double-edged sword there.
I aspire to be like either of you. You guys are both just so organized. So I also do a Google Doc, and I link people to it so they can leave suggestions right on it, which I like to do because if something if a sentence is confusing, or if they really like a line, or they thought something was funny, or if they're upset and I broke their hearts, they can just put it on there. I initially had people reading it as I was still kind of finishing it up. And then the last one that I did, I waited until so I've developed a sitting period. I finish it, I get to everything that I can do with it, and then I like to let it sit for a month, and then I come back to it with fresh eyes. So when I'm letting it sit, that's when I send it to the beta readers, and then I can read everything that they've left and go from there.
I like that idea, though, the sitting period. I think that's important to take some distance from your book.
Yeah, and then you get the paperback or whatever, and you're reading through it, and you're like, wow, that is such a glaring typo, or that's such a glaring whatever. And if I just had sat back for a moment and then looked at it with new eyes, it would have been way better. And I've noticed a big change in the quality of work when I do that.
I noticed that with myself, too. I always thought it was an ADHD thing, but maybe it's just a writer thing.
Yeah, and I always think of stuff after the fact. I'm like, man, this would have been a really cool scene if I just waited and thought about it, it would have came to me and I could have put it in, but now it's too late. And maybe that'll always happen, but at least it gives it a little bit of time to sneak in.
I don't think it's ever too late, though. I think, until you press publish, you can keep adding stuff all you want.
Yeah.
So I added this question on here because I have one, but now that I've heard how structured you both are with finding your beta readers, I don't know if you'll have one. Do you have any crazy beta reading stories, either as an author or as a beta reader?
I don't know how crazy they are. There was one where I signed up to be a beta reader, and then the person actually just asked for like proofreading, and I was like, oh, okay, that's not really what I signed up for, but all right.
Did you do it?
Well, I did, yeah. It was a pretty short work, and so I was like, you know what? No, just do it. It's fine. And then as a writer, this is from someone on Absolute Right, where they really didn't like a choice that I made towards the end of the book. And their comments were just like, I'm so angry at you, right? They were just really like, it was one of those things where it was like, they're joking, but it just wasn't coming across well in like a Google Doc comment.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was a strong emotional reaction that really I wouldn't recommend beta readers give to authors because it was kind of mean.
Unless you know them really well.
Yeah, just don't be mean to the writers, guys. Yeah, I think that's all I got.
You got one, Noah?
Just when people point out stuff like a pattern that you have and you didn't even realize that you had it, and it's like, oh, cool, people are going to read my books and know this is a thing, this is a Noah thing. I think that's what kind of hit me in my last one, but not really anything exciting.
Well, what's your pattern?
Well, it's violent, so trigger warning for anybody.
Okay, TW.
Apparently characters tend to get their throat slit when they're in my books, and I didn't really realize that until...
That's amazing.
No wonder you and Sebastian get along so well.
I know, and it's always like to save people, okay? It's gotta be done. Everyone turns out fine. Happy ending.
Except for the people who get their throat slit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, well, maybe I should not do that anymore. Let's take a break from it. So, yeah.
No, I think you should lean into it.
No. I think there are several creative ways to kill a person that does not involve a knife to their throat. And I'm the first proponent of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if you want to slit people's throats all the live long day, in your book, not in real life, everybody, then you should feel free to do so. But, like, there's that whole song that's like, dumb ways to die. Like, you should be able to kill people off however you want, creatively or slit throats.
Now I gotta go listen to that song.
Yeah, it's just one of those moments that makes you pause.
That's funny.
Yeah, I was like, okay, what's going on here? But anyway.
So mine is about a friend that I made in college in a creative writing class. And he and I are just polar opposites in just every way imaginable, but we would get along very well. And he's very much like, dress in camo, live in the country. And I do like to live in the country, but he's like, go hunting, even though he's a very liberal guy. And I'm very much like, pretty things, aesthetic things, get in touch with your soul and your feelings, and all that sort of thing. So he read Kit and Basie, and it is the opposite of what he would ever pick up just by choice. He read it because he's my friend and he loves me. But so I don't think he liked it. Like, he knew objectively that it was good and he was like, it's good. But I don't think he liked it. And that came through in his feedback. The one line that I remember really succinctly is, I forget what the question was, but the feedback he gave me, and if this, I don't know, I think people know Kit and Basie at this point, but it's about an immortal guy, and his mom's immortal, and she dies, and he's really upset. And he said that Basie's mom sounds like, she's the wisest woman in the book, and she's got a lot of personality, and she's smart, and she's unique, and she's really cool, and I was like, great, awesome. And then he said, and Basie is so annoying, he reads like all he's done for the past 77 years is smear blueberry pie all over his face. And I said, damn, shit. I was like, that's hard, man. That's cruel.
Yeah.
I think generally he just thought that Basie's reaction to things was really immature. Oh, he also told me to delete my favorite chapters from the book. He was like, chapters 14 through 16, you don't need those. You can get rid of those. And I'm like, they're almost the climax of the book. Like, they're the most interesting part. That's the part where things actually happen. What are you talking about?
Oh my god.
And sometimes I will reread the book and I'll be like, oh, Basie really does seem like he's been smearing blueberry pie all over his face for 77 fucking years.
He did it one time.
In a picture.
I'll defend Rousing.
Oh, so I think that was a good lesson for me in like, he gave me a lot of feedback and I didn't take most of it.
And you don't have to.
As is your right.
As is my right.
Yeah, you gotta pick and choose.
But I think that when I beta read for him and I tore his book to shreds, he also ignored me. So we were like fully equal.
It's beautiful.
I did forget about my favorite beta reading experience. This is also from Absolute Right, again on a book that will never get published, and that's okay. It was like a kind of humorous, like lighter fantasy. I really should clarify right now, it's not a horror book, right? But there is a talking skeleton character in it, and he's funny, actually. He's like one of my favorite characters. I should put him somewhere. But so we did a beta reading exchange. Like, I got this guy's book, and he got mine, and he emailed me being like, hey, so I read the first sentence, and it mentions skeletons, and I don't do horror, so I can't read your book. And it was like, the first sentence makes a joke about how skeletons don't have eyes, but he's still like blinking. And so just tone wise, it was just bananas. And I was like, this is a little ridiculous, because I really specified it was not a horror book, but he was like, oh, skeletons, I'm out, bye. But the kicker is that we've actually been intermittently emailing back and forth for like almost a decade since.
Oh my god.
And it's just like, yeah, it's so odd and just delightful. Yeah, having never written any horror in my life, to get that note on like, oh yeah, I gotta duck out after your first sentence was just, I treasure that memory.
That's kind of hysterical. And you know what? That's his right as a beta reader.
Yeah.
Let this be a lesson to you, listener, that even if the book isn't horror, you can back out because it's a horror book and the author will still talk to you for the next 10 years.
Oh man.
Well, any final thoughts, my friends?
One of my final thoughts for writers actually on that front is like, definitely give your beta readers content warnings so that they have like the full understanding of what they are getting into. And then for beta readers, like, you know, beta reading is one way you can find, if you're just a reader, like maybe some of your new favorite author, or if you're a writer, it can help introduce you to just like other writing buddies.
Yeah.
I will be the first to admit I'm a really terrible beta reader because I am not great with deadlines. I still apologize, bow down to Sarah Wallace and S.O. Callahan. So if you are like me and you cannot meet a deadline to save your life, just let the author know. You know, just, hey, or this isn't vibing, you know. I would rather hear like, hey, this isn't going to work out than to get nothing. So if it's not vibing or you're not going to have, life happens for any reason, just talk with the author, or author talk with the reader.
I agree. I was also a failure on the Sarah Wallace S.O. Callahan front for book 3 of the Fae and Human Relations series, and I was really honest about why that was happening, and I just honest about how I felt about letting them down, and they were like, relax, it's a-okay. And they trusted me to read the last book in the series. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that yet. Hopefully I'm allowed to say that. But I got no spoilers, everybody. But so yeah, that's a testament to like, you can still communicate and back out and have the author still trust you another time. Like, don't feel like if you have to back out one time that the author is going to blacklist you forever. They might, but they also might not. So all you can do is just communicate. They might. I don't want to like make false promises or anything. But
I think if you communicate saying like, hey, this is why I'm backing out, but I really want to read stuff in the future. Yeah, I feel like that helps your chances of not getting like, you know, blacklisted.
Oh, that's so much less scary than what I said. Thank you. So, will either of you need beta readers anytime soon?
Yes, actually. I am currently writing a novelette for a secret project that maybe some of us here know about, and I will eventually need beta readers for that.
Good. So keep an eye on Becca's Instagram page and your newsletter too, probably?
Yep.
For beta reading opportunities.
So I currently have like alpha chapters on my Patreon for people to check out and read if they want.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, then I'm going to be doing beta reading, I think, December. And I want to have the book done by the end of the month. So I think in December I'm going to start looking for beta readers. So if you want to read about gay explorers, being feral, and awkward, you know where to find me.
Rock on.
Yes.
And I have a good group of beta readers, but I'll probably reach out for more in December or January if consensual sex, pollen, forbidden love, and guard romances are your thing.
Heck yeah.
Yes, can you add me to that beta reading list, please?
I'm gonna need all the help I can fucking get, okay? The book's a mess. And I need help right now. So, okay, I've got no idea how to close the episode. I'm so sorry, Sebastian. You're probably gonna have to edit out my little ramblings.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks for hanging out with us. That's it. Wait. Okay, Noah, where can people find you? Hit us with it.
Neshama Publishing, that's Neshama, either .com or on Instagram and all those places.
You can find me at rkashwick.com or on Instagram or TikTok, rkashwickbooks.
Woohoo! And I'm on Instagram, tess.carletta, but I'm also tesscarletta.com. So you can find us that way. Okay, now it's goodbye.
See you next time.
See you next time.
See you next time.